Welcome back. Welcome back. It's your host, Delano, on the FanWire podcast. We're going to be doing the recap, the official recap for the Washington Mystics. They did their introductory press conference with their new leadership. So we have a new coach in Sidney Johnson, and we have a new general manager in Jamila Wideman. So let's give the breakdown of some of the things that we picked up from the introductory press conference. So they definitely touched on a few things that is important that the fans wanted to know, and there were a few things that they did not address. And I can see the reason why. But of course, as fans, we want to know it all. We want to know the nuts and the bolts of it all. So let's just get jumping right into it. So one key component that we all want to know is what style of basketball will we be doing? Will we be slow and methodical? Will we push the action? What are we going to do? So, according to Coach Sidney Johnson, they want to play a fast, modern era style of basketball. They want to be attack oriented. That means they're going to get downhill and put pressure on the defense. They also, when they have to slow it down, they're going to play a team oriented style that still puts pressure on their opponents. So that's good to know. Always have a huge fan of attack basketball. With that also being said, we do have low post players that are highly effective. So by us having those players, that means that, hey, we still have to be able to play in the low post. And they said that they want to do that. Coach also brought up that Slim and Sharika were our best duo last year. They had the best high plus minus ratio. So Slim and Sharika, they are a highly effective duo. So that could mean that they are keys to the future. But the one thing that they said about Slim and Sharika, they have to be available. Just like what some of us has grown to know, your availability is your best ability. So you have to be available to the team to play. So we look forward to seeing what those two can do. And if you have been watching the Unrivaled Basketball League, then you know that Sharika is down there looking good. She looks strong. She's already going to be in super top shape coming into the season. I think she's going to have a breakout season. I already know Slim is going to do what she do. I think she's going to have a standout season too. So, with that being said, see here, Sharika Austin and Brittany Sykes, aka Slim. I think that they're going to have a very important role in this team. One thing that the general manager, Jamila Wideman, stated is that the approach that she's going to take to developing the culture and the team is going to be centered on the opportunity of the outstanding players or understanding. I'm sorry. It's going to be centered around the opportunity to understand players as people, not alone just players. They're not just a commodity. They're not just something that's transactional. So they want to get to know them as people and see how that can be leveraged as they go forward. They also believe in leadership should be less visible and the players should stand out in front. So that's very important. You don't have to have someone that wants to be the star of the action. You have a coach and a GM that wants to propel the players, and that gives more opportunity to the players. One thing that they also said was that they want to um, leverage their players, what they do off the court, and see how that can impact the business of the Washington Mystics. So that's going to be great. I'm sure that they're going to have different ways to incorporate that in the building so that the team players don't necessarily have to leave the building. So that's a good thing. So pretty much taking things that the Unrivaled Basketball League have incorporated because they have uh, player development along with um, the ability for the players to work on their game, but they also have other mechanisms where they can do their podcasts and other things that they would typically do outside of the arena, and they can do it all in house. So I look for that to happen. Um, Additionally, uh, see here, the GM says um, they want to work on, and the coach, they want to work with the team on freedom of movement, using their creativity and the ability to show up as a collective and as an individual. Those are great answers. Um, see here. One question that came up to Michael Winger was, how are they going to leverage the process of building the Wizards compared to how they're going to build the Mystics? So one thing that Michael said, timing is crucial. So pretty much they worked all the kinks out when it came to the Wizards on how to start the rebuild process and how to get them going again. And they're going to use those same uh, methods of operation that they learned works for the Wizards to incorporate that with the Mystics. So I think that's dope. Um, so the Wizards, I guess, they are the test case for the Mystics. Um, so we look for great things. Look for great things. Let's see here. Um, One thing that I reported was that the coaching staff, and I'm sorry, not the coaching staff, but Jamila Wideman as GM and Coach Sidney Johnson were noticed down at Unrivaled, and that's really a really good thing. And that was noticed by one of the fans of the Washington Mystics. So when it comes to the coach and the GM being down in Miami working, they had the ability to evaluate our current players, which would be uh, Shakira Austin, that would be Aaliyah Edwards, Stephanie Dawson, and Brittany Sykes. Because guess what? They're playing Unrivaled. So they get a good bird's eye view of the talent that they have, right? As well as they get to see how they interact with other players, right? And they get to see um, how they fit into their philosophy as an organization and playing style as a team. So I think that's great, as well as being able to see how other players can fit into the Washington Mystics going forward. So that's dope. I really, really like that approach. Just like I said before, if you're a fan of another WNBA team and your leadership and your coaches are not at Unrivaled, you need to question what they're doing, to be honest. Because all of these players that are there will be free agents in 2026. All of them, except for maybe one or two, if I'm right. But for the vast majority, they will be free agents. So that means that we have an opportunity to acquire new players. right? So it's always good to see that. And let's see here. One thing that I didn't know about Coach Sidney Johnson, um, he is technically a local product. He stated in his interview that he grew up in Townsend, Maryland. I knew that he was born in a different place, and I knew that he spent time in Baltimore, but I didn't realize that he grew up in Townsend. So one thing that he stated was he wants to make um, the Washington Mystics one of the key franchises that fans look to and gravitate to across the DMV. So you have the Mystics, you have the Ravens, you have the Commanders, you have multiple teams, right? Orioles across the dynamic space of the DMV, right? So if they can make the Mystics one of those top tier franchises, that'd be amazing. So we look forward to seeing how that can be accomplished. But one question that came up that we didn't really get a good answer for, and I can kind of see why, was what is their plan going into 2026? And they really didn't state what the plan would be. Um, but I know that they're still evaluating, still trying to get things together, right? But also, they don't want to tip their hand to other teams. So I think that's fine. Um, we do know that, just like I previously stated, that the leadership is or was down in Miami evaluating players. So they got a heads up on everything and see how those pieces can be put together for the massive piece of our puzzle, which is the Washington Mystics. Um, see here. So they also had a question about college scouting. So the approach that they're going to do is they're well aware that they have multiple draft picks in the 2025 draft, but they have to have foresight into future drafts because you have to be prepared for what's coming, right? You have to you can't build your team based on what you see now because, and you're going to always have turnover when it comes to the roster and also additional players that come in via the draft or from the international players. So they're definitely going to focus in on college and international players as we go forward. But they didn't really get into any ideas of what and how they're going to do it. They also said that it was mentioned that Emily Sykes, I'm sorry, Emily Inksler and Thinker Kanye have a strong future. So I believe that they have a good chance of making the team, even though Emily Inksler has signed a training camp uh, contract. But I really think that she's going to be a part of the team going forward. Um, one question that came up from the press that was at the press conference, they wanted to know about ways that we can prevent injuries across our team because that's definitely been one of our weaknesses, our Achilles heel. But preferably the basketball gods don't allow us to have any Achilles injuries. But just spin on words there. Um, one thing that Michael said was pretty much if you play hard, you have a chance to get injured. You know, that's just a part of playing basketball at a competitive, highly competitive level where you have physical interactions with other people. You know, people cut like normal, but you never know how your body will react under various circumstances. circumstances and time. So, they still will continue to focus in on uh, keeping our players healthy, and that involves major focuses on physical health and mental health and everything in between. So that's good to know. But like they said, when you play hard, there's a possibility of injury. We've seen that for decades. Ever since we've ever started watching basketball or played basketball, you got a chance of anything can happen at any point in time. You just got to keep playing hard and let the chips fall where they fall. Um, they also want players to consider DC home. I think that's very important, especially when it comes to free agency. Uh, you know, when you're a college player coming in, you really don't have a choice. It's where you're selected. But when you have new players that are potentially coming in, or if you're trying to retain players, it's important that your facility, the town, the area uh, feels like home, because nobody likes going to work and they don't feel good about going to work. Everybody knows how that feels when you go to a job that you just don't like. It sucks. And just like with everybody else, you have the opportunity to move on to a different job if you're a regular person working. But the one thing about being a professional basketball player, if you have value, there's always somebody interested in your service. So I think it's very important that the Washington Mystics develop that culture where players consider this home. So we look forward to seeing how that plays out, and just to know that coach wants to play fast. I like it. Now I have to put together a video discussing how and which players fit into that mold that are currently on the team, and what players we need to get to make that happen, and how. The one thing about us, we are strapped when it comes to salary cap. But, you know, we'll see what Jamila can do to make Coach Sidney Johnson's vision come to pass. All right, so take this time right now, if you don't mind. We really would appreciate it if you take a second, subscribe to the channel so that you can be aware and get all the notifications. Make sure you change the bell so that you get all the notifications of what we're doing here at the FanWire podcast. And like the video. It means a lot to us so that we can train the algorithm to make sure that we're getting out the updated content for Washington Mystics to the people. I think it's very important. And also, let the Washington Mystics know what you feel about the team. Let them know. Drop some comments on the video. Let us know what you want to see from our leadership. And hey, we'll let them know. We're going to let them know. All right. So that's Delano signing out. This is the FanWire podcast. And guess what? We out of here.